So here's the thing. Everybody wants that lean, flat stomach, but they also don't want to look skinny and weak. The goal isn't just losing fat. It's losing fat while holding on to muscle, maybe even building some. That's where strategy comes in. Because if you just slash calories, starve yourself, and do hours of cardio, sure, you'll lose weight, but you'll also lose muscle. You'll feel terrible and your metabolism will fight back. That's not sustainable. The better way, it's about balance between nutrition, training, recovery, and patience. Let's walk through the most important strategies. First, calorie balance is king. You need a small, sustainable calorie deficit. Not eat like a rabbit and collapse after a week deficit, but something moderate enough that the fat comes off, but not so much that your body panics and eats into muscle. Track your intake, stay consistent, and don't buy into shortcuts. Second, protein is your best friend. Aim high with protein because it keeps you fuller, helps preserve muscle, and even burns more calories through digestion. If you're lifting weights, and you should be, protein is literally the building block that lets your body keep muscle while the fat melts away. Third, resistance training isn't optional. It's the backbone. Cardio helps burn calories, but weights tell your body, hey, this muscle is important, don't get rid of it. Train with progressive overload, hit your compounds, and push with enough effort. That's how you signal to your body to keep muscle while you're dropping fat. Fourth, lifestyle is what makes it stick. Sleep enough so hormones aren't working against you. Manage stress so you're not binging at night. And be realistic, fat loss is slow, muscle building is slower, but both are possible if you stop chasing magic hacks and instead stick with a plan. The flat stomach and defined muscle combo comes from months of consistency, not days of desperation. So if you want fat loss that actually lasts while still building that lean, strong look, control your calories, prioritize protein, train hard with weights, and recover like it matters. That's the formula. Simple, but brutally effective. When it comes to fat loss, the first thing we've got to nail down is energy balance. Now, I know people love to complicate this. They'll throw buzzwords like hormones and detox and magic superfoods at you, but the simple reality is this. If you consistently burn more calories than you consume, you're going to lose fat. And if you don't, you won't. That's the law of thermodynamics, and unfortunately for the detox tea companies, it doesn't really care about marketing gimmicks. But here's the catch. Yes, a calorie deficit is required, but the size of that deficit matters. If you go too aggressive, you'll run into a ton of problems. Let's say you slash your calories in half and just try to tough it out. Sure, for the first week, you'll lose a bunch of weight. Maybe you'll even see the scale drop fast and get all excited. But what's happening behind the scenes? You're probably losing a ton of muscle glycogen and water. You're maybe even tapping into some muscle tissue and your body is starting to freak out. Hunger hormones crank up, energy drops, and pretty soon you're either binging on cookies at midnight or dragging yourself through workouts that feel like torture. That's not sustainable. And even if you power through, you'll end up looking like a smaller, weaker version of yourself, not the lean, muscular version you actually want. Now let's imagine the other extreme. You're trying to be so cautious, you put yourself in the tiniest deficit possible, like shaving off 100 calories a day. Well, congratulations, you've got yourself a plan that technically works. But here's the problem. You're not going to notice progress. A pound of fat is about 3,500 calories. So if you're only saving 100 calories a day, that's like maybe a pound every 5 weeks. And during that time, your motivation will probably crash because you're not seeing changes, and you'll give up before the system even works. Too small of a deficit is basically spinning your wheels. Yes, technically fat is coming off, but so slow it won't keep you engaged. The sweet spot is in the middle, a moderate calorie deficit. Think 20 to 25% below maintenance for most people, enough that you're burning fat consistently, but not so much that your workouts suffer, your recovery tanks, and your life becomes miserable. That's the key word here, sustainable. Because anyone can crash diet for a week, but the people who get truly lean, with flat stomachs and muscles still intact, are the ones who find a deficit they can stick to for months. Let's talk about how to actually set this up. Step one is figuring out your maintenance calories. Basically, how much you burn on an average day. There are calculators online, but honestly, they're just estimates. The better approach is to track what you're eating right now and see what happens to your body weight over a couple of weeks. If your weight is stable, boom, that's roughly your maintenance. From there, cut out about 20%. So if you're maintaining on 2,500 calories, aim for around 2,000. Simple math, and it gives you room to adjust if needed. But here's where people mess up. They think they can out-train a bad diet. They'll eat whatever they want and then try to fix it with hours of cardio. That's not the move. Exercise is great for health, for burning some extra calories, for signaling to your body to hold on to muscle, but the bulk of fat loss happens in the kitchen. If you nail your diet but slack on cardio, you'll still lose fat. If you nail cardio but eat like a dumpster, you won't. That's just how it works. Another mistake is inconsistency. Let's say your deficit is perfect, Monday through Friday, but then the weekend hits and you have 2 nights of pizza, beer, and dessert. You just wiped out your whole week's deficit in 48 hours. Then you step on the scale Monday and wonder why nothing's changing. It's not that calorie deficits don't work. It's that you didn't actually stay in one. Consistency beats perfection every time. You don't have to eat chicken and broccoli 7 days a week, but you do need to respect the numbers across the whole week. And let's also be real, being hungry sometimes is part of the deal. You're in a deficit, your body notices, and it's going to send you signals. That doesn't mean you're dying, it just means the system is working. The trick is making it tolerable. High protein helps, high volume foods like veggies and fruit help, and spacing your meals out can help. But at the end of the day, a little bit of hunger is just part of the process. You've got to be okay with it. The last thing I'll say is patience. Fat loss isn't supposed to be fast. If you're losing 1 to 2 pounds a week, you're doing awesome. It might not feel dramatic, but think about it. After 3 months, that's 12 to 24 pounds gone. And if you did it right, your muscle is still intact. That's a whole new body in just 1 season of the year. But if you try to double that speed with some crash diet, chances are you'll lose muscle, lose motivation, and end up right back where you started. So the bottom line is this: moderate calorie deficit, not too big, not too small, enough to make steady progress while still letting you train hard, recover, and feel human. It's not glamorous, but it works every single time. And if you actually want a flat stomach while keeping your muscle, there's no way around it. If there's one nutrient that absolutely dominates when it comes to fat loss while holding on to muscle, it's protein. Carbs and fats get all the headlines. People argue endlessly about keto versus low fat, intermittent fasting versus carb cycling, but honestly, protein doesn't really get questioned. Everybody who knows what they're doing agrees, eat plenty of protein. Why? Because it does 3 big things you desperately need when you're trying to lose fat and not look like a deflated balloon in the process. It keeps you full, it helps you preserve muscle, and it literally burns more calories just to digest. That's a triple win. Let's start with satiety, fancy word for how full you feel. When you're in a calorie deficit, you're going to be hungry sometimes. That's unavoidable. But what you eat can make that hunger tolerable or unbearable. Protein-rich foods like chicken, fish, lean beef, eggs, Greek yogurt, they take longer to digest. They send signals to your brain that you're satisfied, and they don't leave you starving again an hour later like some sugary snack would. If you've ever tried dieting with low protein, you know how miserable it is. You're constantly hunting for food, always feeling deprived. But once you jack up protein intake, dieting gets way easier to stick to because you're not battling nonstop hunger. Now let's get into the really critical part, muscle preservation. Here's the deal. When you're in a calorie deficit, your body has a choice. It can burn stored fat, which is what you want, or it can break down muscle tissue, which is what you don't want. The goal is to make sure it leans on fat as the primary fuel source and spares your hard-earned muscle. Resistance training helps send the signal to hold on to muscle, but protein is the building block your body uses to actually repair and maintain it. Without enough protein, you're essentially telling your body, muscle doesn't matter, and it will happily chew through your biceps and quads to make up for the calorie gap. That's why people who diet without prioritizing protein often end up skinny fat. The scale says they lost weight, but the mirror shows no definition, no muscle, just a softer, smaller version of themselves. Not exactly the look most people are after. Here's another underrated bonus of protein. It has the highest thermic effect of food, which is just a nerdy way of saying your body burns more calories digesting protein than it does carbs or fat. With carbs, you burn maybe 5 to 10% of their calories during digestion. With fat, it's only like 0 to 3%. But with protein, you burn 20 to 30% just to break it down. So if you eat 200 calories of protein, only about 140 to 160 of those calories actually get absorbed. That's like getting free calorie burn just by prioritizing protein. It's not magic, but over weeks and months, it adds up. Okay, so how much protein do you actually need? The general sweet spot is about 1 gram per pound of body weight, or if you're on the heavier side, maybe 1 gram per pound of lean body mass. Some people can do fine on a little less, maybe 0.7 grams per pound, but if you want to be safe, sticking close to 1 gram per pound is a solid, simple rule. For a 180-pound person, that's around 180 grams of protein per day. Sounds like a lot, but when you split it across 3 to 5 meals, it's very doable. Now, there are always people who say, isn't eating too much protein bad for your kidneys? The short answer is no, not if you're a healthy individual. That myth has been floating around forever, but study after study shows that high-protein diets are safe for healthy people. The only group who really needs to be cautious is those with pre-existing kidney disease, and if that's you, you're already getting specific medical advice, not diet tips from the internet. For the rest of us, protein is not just safe, it's beneficial. Another question that comes up is, what about timing? Do I need to slam protein right after my workout? The truth is, as long as you're hitting your daily total, the exact timing isn't that critical. Sure, getting some protein within a few hours of training is a good idea, but you don't need to chug a shake in the locker room before you've even cooled down. What matters more is spreading your protein fairly evenly across the day so your body has a steady supply of amino acids. So instead of skipping breakfast, eating a tiny lunch, and then cramming 150 grams of protein into dinner, break it up. Maybe 30 to 50 grams at each meal, plus a snack or shake if you need it. That way your body can actually use it efficiently for muscle maintenance and repair. Let's be real for a second. Hitting high protein every day takes planning. If you just wing it, you'll probably end up short. This is where lean protein sources really shine. Chicken breast, turkey, fish, egg whites, low-fat Greek yogurt, whey protein. They're high in protein, low in calories, and easy to fit into a deficit. If you try to hit your protein target with only fatty cuts of meat or tons of cheese, you're going to blow through your calories way too fast. So the strategy is lean proteins as your foundation, and then add carbs and fats around them based on your calorie budget. The bottom line is that protein is the cornerstone of successful fat loss with muscle preservation. It makes you full, it protects your gains, it even burns extra calories just by being digested. It's not glamorous, it's not trendy, but it's brutally effective. If you want to get lean while staying strong and muscular, don't fall into the trap of obsessing over carb versus fat debates. Instead, make sure protein is high, consistent, and spread throughout your day. Do that, and you've solved one of the biggest pieces of the fat loss puzzle. When the goal is fat loss while keeping or even building muscle, resistance training isn't just some side dish you add to your diet plan. It's the main course. If you try to get lean without lifting weights, what you'll usually end up with is a smaller, weaker version of yourself. The number on the scale might look better, but the mirror won't. You'll have less muscle, lower strength, and instead of that lean, athletic look, you'll have what's called the skinny fat look. Not exactly the beach body most people are chasing. Resistance training is what tells your body, hey, this muscle is important, don't burn it for energy, keep it, because I'm still using it. How a lot of people think cardio should be their #1 weapon for fat loss. And don't get me wrong, cardio has its place. It helps burn extra calories. It's good for your heart and health. But when it comes to protecting muscle mass and shaping your body, cardio doesn't send the signal you need. Lifting weights does. Think about it. If you're running or cycling, your body doesn't really care about holding on to large muscular shoulders or thick quads. It just wants to make you more efficient at endurance work. That often means shedding extra muscle. But when you're pushing weights, especially progressively over time, your body adapts by holding onto or even adding muscle fibers. That's the difference. Cardio makes you smaller. Weights make you leaner and stronger. So what does resistance training for fat loss actually look like? A lot of people imagine it's some kind of special toning workout with pink dumbbells, 1,000,000 reps, and no sweat. That's not how it works. The principles of good lifting don't suddenly change just because you're dieting. You still want to focus on progressive overload, lifting relatively heavy weights, aiming to improve over time, using compound lifts as your foundation. Squats, deadlifts, presses, rows, pull-ups, these big movements engage a lot of muscles, send a loud signal to your body, and are efficient for burning calories too. Accessory lifts like curls, lateral raises, and triceps work are great to polish things off, but the backbone is those heavy compound lifts. Now, one mistake people make when dieting is cutting back too much on training intensity. They think, I'm in a calorie deficit, so I'll just go lighter and do higher reps to burn more calories. That's backwards. You're already burning calories with the diet itself. The goal of lifting isn't to maximize calorie burn, it's to tell your body to preserve muscle. If you go too light and don't challenge yourself, your body doesn't feel that pressure to keep muscle around. So yes, you might not be hitting all-time personal records while in a deficit, but you should still be training heavy enough to challenge yourself and keep strength up as much as possible. Think of lifting during a cut as muscle insurance. You're paying the premium with hard training so your body doesn't auction off your muscle tissue. Another key point is training volume and frequency. When you're in a deficit, recovery is harder, you don't have as much energy, you're eating fewer calories, and your body is under more stress. That means you can't necessarily train with the same crazy volume you might handle in a bulking phase. If you try, you'll burn out fast. The smart move is to prioritize quality over quantity. A moderate number of sets, performed with good technique and enough effort, will get the job done. And you want to hit each muscle group at least twice per week if possible, because frequency helps maintain muscle when calories are low. What about lifting to absolute failure every set? Probably not the best idea when dieting. You want to train hard, yes, but also leave just a bit of fuel in the tank so you can recover and keep coming back. Going to failure all the time when your calories are already low is a recipe for burnout. Instead, think about keeping most sets 1 to 2 reps shy of failure, with occasional all-out efforts. That balance keeps you progressing without digging yourself into a recovery hole. One of the underrated parts of lifting during fat loss is psychological. Dieting can make you feel weaker, smaller, and sometimes frustrated because you're not getting those big bulking pumps or hitting new PRs. But lifting is a way to stay connected to your strength and muscle identity. Even if the numbers on the bar stall out for a bit, the fact that you're still training hard reminds your body and your brain that you're not just shrinking, you're shaping. That mental reinforcement is huge for staying consistent in the long run. Let's not forget the calorie burn aspect either. Lifting might not torch as many calories per session as running, but the after effect is different. Building and maintaining muscle actually raises your daily energy expenditure because muscle tissue is metabolically active. More muscle means a slightly higher metabolism, and over time that makes fat loss easier to maintain. You won't turn into a calorie-burning furnace overnight, but lifting gives you an edge that steady cardio just doesn't. And here's a little reality check. You're not going to build tons of new muscle while cutting unless you're a beginner or coming back from a break. But you can absolutely keep what you have, and in some cases even improve a bit. And trust me, keeping the muscle you worked so hard for is just as valuable as gaining new muscle. Because when the fat comes off, that muscle is what gives you shape. It's what makes your stomach look flat and defined instead of just flat. It's the difference between looking like you lost weight and looking like you transformed. So at the end of the day, resistance training is not optional. When you want fat loss with muscle preservation, it's the signal, the anchor, the insurance policy. Cardio helps, diet drives the deficit, but lifting is what makes sure you don't lose the very thing you've been building in the first place. If you want that strong, lean look, you can't just diet down, you've got to lift your way there. If there's one thing people love to ignore when it comes to fat loss and building muscle, it's recovery and lifestyle. Everyone obsesses about the diet plan, the exact workout split, the macros, the supplements, even the timing of meals, but they'll turn around and sleep 5 hours a night, stress about everything under the sun, and wonder why they feel like garbage and their results are stalling. The truth is, recovery and lifestyle are not optional extras. They're the foundation. If you want fat loss and muscle preservation to actually work, you need to treat sleep, stress, and daily habits with the same seriousness as your training and nutrition. Let's start with sleep. When you don't get enough sleep, your body basically fights against fat loss. Your hunger hormones go crazy. Ghrelin goes up, leptin goes down. Translation, you're hungrier all the time, and your ability to feel satisfied after meals drops. That's a brutal combo when you're in a deficit already. On top of that, lack of sleep wrecks your recovery from training. You'll feel weaker in the gym, your muscles won't repair as well, and over time, you'll lose strength and possibly muscle mass. Oh, and to make things worse, your body becomes more insulin resistant when you're chronically sleep deprived, which makes managing carbs harder and fat loss less efficient. So yeah, sleep isn't just about feeling rested. It's literally about keeping your physiology aligned with your goals. 7 to 9 hours is the target, not 5 with a double espresso in the morning, not 4 and I'll catch up on the weekend. Consistent, high-quality sleep. Next up, stress. And no, I'm not talking about the stress of missing an episode of your favorite Netflix show. I'm talking chronic psychological stress, which ramps up cortisol. Now, cortisol isn't evil. It's actually a normal hormone that helps mobilize energy. But when it's elevated all the time, it leads to muscle breakdown, stubborn fat retention, and again, a whole lot of hunger. Ever notice that when life is stressful, you crave comfort food and it's harder to stick to a diet? That's not just in your head. High stress literally changes your eating behavior and physiology. So if your fat loss plan is perfect on paper, but your lifestyle is a disaster, work stress, no downtime, no recovery, you're sabotaging yourself without realizing it. So how do you fix this? It doesn't mean quitting your job and moving to the mountains. It means building in strategies to manage stress in realistic ways. That could be mindfulness, meditation, journaling, taking a walk without your phone, or just setting boundaries on work hours. Even something as simple as scheduling a consistent bedtime or having a relaxing routine before bed can make a huge difference. If you're constantly running yourself into the ground, your body won't respond to fat loss or muscle building the way you want. Now, let's talk about lifestyle consistency. Fat loss isn't about being perfect for 3 days and then blowing it on the weekend. It's about stacking weeks and months of decent execution. That means setting up your environment so the default choice is the right choice. If your kitchen is stocked with chips, cookies, and soda, guess what you're eating when you're tired and stressed. But if your fridge is full of lean proteins, veggies, fruit, and water, then that's what you'll grab. Willpower is overrated. Environment matters. Lifestyle success is about making the easy choice the right choice over and over again. Another piece of lifestyle is patience. Fat loss in muscle preservation is not a quick process. If you think you're going to transform your body in 2 weeks, you're setting yourself up for disappointment. The reality is, losing 1 to 2 pounds a week is fantastic progress. In 3 months, that's a dramatic change. In 6 months, it's a full transformation. But the problem is, people expect daily miracles. They weigh themselves, see fluctuations from water and sodium, and think the diet isn't working. Then they panic, quit, or try something extreme. That's lifestyle sabotage right there. The people who win are the ones who zoom out, look at the big picture, and stay consistent. Social life matters too. If your diet isolates you from friends and family, you'll quit. You don't have to say no to every dinner out, every birthday, every social event. You just need to plan ahead. Maybe you save some calories for that meal. Maybe you pick a lean protein and a veggie side instead of going all in on pizza and dessert. Lifestyle balance means learning to make it work without being that person who brings a Tupperware of boiled chicken to a wedding. You can live your life and still hit your goals. It just requires intention, not all or nothing thinking. And here's the last piece. Recovery isn't laziness. A lot of people think if they're not working out 7 days a week, they're slacking. But the reality is, recovery is where adaptation happens. You train hard, you stress your muscles, then you recover and they adapt. Without that recovery, you're just digging the hole deeper and deeper. In a calorie deficit, recovery is even more important because your body is under added stress. Taking a rest day, sleeping an extra hour, managing your workload, those are not weaknesses, they're part of the plan. If you ignore them, your fat loss slows, your muscle shrinks, and your motivation tanks. So when you step back and look at the big picture, recovery and lifestyle are not the extras you tack on after diet and training. They're the glue that holds the whole system together. You can have the perfect training program, the best macro split, and even good genetics, but if you sleep 4 hours, stress all day, and binge on weekends, it's not going to matter. On the other hand, if you lock in your sleep, manage your stress, keep your environment aligned with your goals, and stay consistent over time, you'll make fat loss almost automatic. The flat stomach and muscle definition you want aren't just built in the gym or the kitchen. They're also built in the hours you spend resting, recovering, and living your daily life.